The scream of the kettle sliced through the quiet kitchen. A shrill accusation that made Lena's hands tremble as she poured boiling water into her mug. The steam curled upward, stinging her eyes. Or maybe that was the tears she refused to acknowledge. She stood frozen, clutching the chipped ceramic, as Ryan's voice echoed from the living room. Low, secretive, a tone she hadn't heard in months. "No, not tonight," he murmured into his phone. The words muffled but sharp enough to cut. "She's here. I'll call you later." Lena's heart lurched, a visceral jolt that felt like tripping over a wire in the dark. Who was she? And why did later sound like a promise he couldn't keep in her presence? The apartment, their shared sanctuary for 3 years, suddenly felt alien. The worn couch where they'd binge-watched thrillers, the coffee table scarred from her nervous nail tapping, the faint lavender scent of her candles, all of it mocked her now. She strained to hear more, but Ryan's voice dropped to a whisper, then silence. The click of his phone locking was louder than it should have been. Lena's fingers tightened around the mug, the heat searing her palms, grounding her in the moment's raw unease. She wanted to storm in, demand answers, but her feet stayed rooted. What if she was wrong? What if she was just paranoid, seeing shadows where there were none? Ryan appeared in the doorway, his easy smile practiced but not quite reaching his hazel eyes. "Tea again?" he asked, leaning against the counter. Too casual, like he hadn't just been whispering secrets. His dark hair was mussed, his flannel shirt slightly untucked, and for a moment, he was the man she'd fallen for, charming, disheveled hers. But the air between them crackled with something unspoken. "You okay, Lena? You look off." Her throat tightened. "Just tired," she lied, stirring her tea with a spoon that clinked too loudly against the mug. The sound was a metronome to her racing thoughts. "Who were you talking to? Why do you sound so guilty?" She wanted to scream it, but the words lodged in her chest, heavy as stones. Instead, she asked, "Who was on the phone?" His pause was a heartbeat too long. "Work," he said, shrugging. "They're hounding me about the deadline." He turned to grab an apple from the bowl, his movements deliberate, avoiding her gaze. Lena's stomach twisted. Ryan worked in IT. His deadlines didn't require hushed late-night calls. She sipped her tea, the chamomile bitter on her tongue, and watched him bite into the apple with a nonchalance that felt like a slap. The next morning, the apartment was too quiet. Ryan had left for work early, his side of the bed cold when Lena woke. She sat on the edge of the mattress, staring at his pillow, its indentation a ghost of his presence. Her mind replayed last night's call, dissecting every inflection. She'd always trusted him, his late nights, his client dinners, his sudden need for space to clear his head. But now, each memory felt like a breadcrumb leading to a truth she wasn't ready to face. She opened his laptop, left carelessly on the desk, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. "This is wrong," her conscience whispered. "But so is lying," her heart shot back. The screen glowed to life, his email already open. Her pulse hammered as she scrolled, eyes catching on a name, Clara. A colleague, he'd said once, just a project partner. But the emails weren't about work. "Missed you at the bar last night," one read, timestamped 2 days ago. "Can't wait for Thursday," another said, with a winking emoji that made Lena's chest burn. Thursday. Tomorrow. Her vision blurred, the word swimming. She clicked out, slamming the laptop shut, her breath ragged. "It's nothing," she told herself. "You're overreacting." But her hands shook as she dressed for work, the mirror reflecting a woman she barely recognized, pale, hollow-eyed, betrayed. At her office, the hum of fluorescent lights and clatter of keyboards couldn't drown out her thoughts. She texted Ryan, "Dinner tonight?" His reply came hours later. "Stuck at work. Rain check." The words were a punch, casual but deliberate. She stared at her phone, the screen's glow harsh in the dim cubicle. He's lying. The certainty settled like ice in her veins. She Googled Clara's name, her fingers moving before her brain could stop them. LinkedIn showed a smiling brunette, poised and professional, tagged in photos with Ryan at a conference last month. Their heads were too close, their smiles too intimate. Lena's heart pounded, a drumbeat of dread. She left work early, claiming a headache, but the real ache was deeper, a fracture in her trust. That night, Ryan came home late, the scent of rain and something floral, perfume, clinging to his jacket. Lena sat on the couch, a book open but unread, her eyes tracking him. "Long day?" she asked, her voice steady despite the storm inside. He nodded, avoiding her gaze, and muttered something about a server crash. The lie was flimsy, a house of cards waiting to collapse. She wanted to confront him, to scream, but the words caught in her throat. What if she was wrong? What if she destroyed them over nothing? Instead, she watched him move through their routine, brushing his teeth, changing into sweats, like a stranger wearing her lover's face. Thursday arrived, heavy with anticipation. Lena called in sick, her voice convincing even to herself. She waited until Ryan left, his briefcase swinging with purpose, then followed. The city was a blur of gray skies and honking cabs as she trailed him to a cafe downtown. Through the window, she saw him with Clara, their laughter a silent knife. Clara's hand brushed his, lingering. Lena's knees buckled, the pavement cold against her palms as she crouched, hidden by a parked car. Her mind screamed denials. It's just coffee, just friends. But her heart knew better. The truth was a slow poison, seeping into every memory of their love. She confronted him that night, her voice trembling but resolute. "Who's Clara?" The question hung in the air, heavy as the rain outside. Ryan's face paled, his eyes darting like a cornered animal. "Just a co-worker," he said, but his voice cracked, betraying him. Lena's laugh was bitter, hollow. "Stop acting like we're married," she spat, the words a weapon. "You don't get a say in where I go or who I'm with anymore." His silence was louder than any confession, his guilt a tangible weight. She waited for him to fight, to explain, but he only stared, defeated. The twist came later, when Lena found Clara's email in his trash folder. "I'm sorry," it read. "I didn't know you were still with her." Clara hadn't known. Ryan had lied to them both, weaving a web of half-truths to keep his options open. Lena's anger dissolved into grief, her love for him a wound that wouldn't close. She packed a bag, her hands steady now, and left the apartment without a word. The door's click behind her was final, a sound louder than any scream. Outside, the rain washed away the last of her trust, leaving only the ache of a story rewritten by betrayal.